Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. And today I am going to be talking about players who need a change of scenery. Now, I am recording this one right after I record the Cole Caulfield one, so go check that one out if you feel like it. Yep, self-promo, that's right. Maybe you want to check this one, go check out the Cole Caulfield video, maybe, I don't know. But you're here, obviously, you clicked on this one. And in this video, I am going to be talking about, just like I said, players who I think need a change of scenery. So basically what that means is players who on their current team right now are underperforming or playing not to what I believe is their capabilities. And if they got moved elsewhere, I think that they would be able to play closer to that or be better than what they are right now. So I went in alphabetical order again. There are a couple teams I couldn't find players for. So yeah, I'm sorry Winnipeg, not because I couldn't find a player, but because you're last on the list. Yeah, maybe I'll change the order sometime and go reverse alphabetical, and that way Winnipeg fans will get a feeling what it's like to go first. But that's not happening this time. So who's gonna feel what who's gonna feel what it feels like to go first? That is going to be Anaheim again. That was a bit of a tongue twister. But from Anaheim, who I picked is centerman Ricardo Raquel. Ricardo Raquel has been pretty not great this year, not bad, just a bit underwhelming. He had a good season a few years ago, and I don't think it's his age that's made him worse. He's only 28. He's still relatively in his prime, and he's just been in a slug the last couple years. He was playing really good for Anaheim 2 years ago and a little bit past that or beyond that, but since then he's been last year wasn't a great year, and this year he hasn't really bounced back a bit. So I think that by finding him a new team, you'd be able to get more out of him, I think he'd be able to get more out of himself in a new location that's not Anaheim. Moving on to Arizona, and from Arizona, I have defenseman Jacob Chichen. Jacob Chichen has been disappointing this year. Let's be honest, it's been a rough year for Chichen so far. He is also, I don't like to show many of these stats, but one player I have the stat for is Chichen, and he's been a -28. And I know Arizona sucks, but that is a lot worse than a lot of other players on the team. So he's just been having a rough year after a few good years, and especially last year being fantastic. And I think he could refine his game quite a bit, especially considering he's only 23. He could definitely find his game again in a new location that's not Arizona. I think he needs to get away from that dumpster fire and find another place to go. And I'm pretty sure he should be traded by the trade deadline. I mean, there's no rush, right? They have a lot of time on his contract. But moving on to Boston. Boston was a pretty obvious one for me. I went with left wing Jake Debresque. Now, obviously, Jake Debresque has handed in his note or waived his note or requested a trade. There we go. That's what it is. He obviously has requested a trade. And he's still young enough that I think there will be takers for him. He hasn't been able to reach that 20, 30 goal scoring production in a while. He hasn't been able to get there. And I think that with getting more opportunity on a new team, maybe in the top 6 on the second line, such as Edmonton has been rumored, because, you got Louis Debresque doing the commentating there, some of it, and then you got Jake Debresque. Moving to a team like that, where you get an opportunity to play with a good player, I think he could really thrive and start scoring some more goals. But moving on to Buffalo, and from Buffalo, I have another young player, and that is Casey Middlestadt. Casey Middlestadt is an interesting player in that I don't want to give up on him yet, but he hasn't shown me a lot to be hopeful for, or to make me think that he's going to be a great player. He had sparks of it last season. He ended last season great. Then he sort of got injured this season, and really things just haven't worked out with Buffalo, as many prospects do in Buffalo, because Buffalo, that's where prospects go to die. That's just how it is. But I think if Casey Middlestadt's hockey career if he wants that career to thrive more, I think it would be in his best interest to find a place that's not Buffalo to play, because that way I just don't know. I think he would be better in a place that's not Buffalo. Young people in Buffalo is not a very good match, if you know what I mean. But to Calgary, and from Calgary, I've gone with centerman Sean Monaghan. Sean Monaghan in 49 games has 8 goals, 14 assists for 22 points. And that isn't bad. Well, it's pretty bad for him, actually. So here's the thing. Last season, obviously a rough season. Not a great season. This season, you're hoping for a bit of a bounce back. You know, it's been a couple of, like, not as great seasons since that 18-19 season, I think it was. That was fantastic. But you're hoping for something, right? And he just hasn't given you that. He's been rough. He's been playing on the third line because of his play. And maybe getting traded and getting an opportunity on the top two lines again to prove himself, that would definitely probably help his point production and all of that. And it's not like he's old. He's only 27. There's still plenty of time for him to improve. But right now, I think he needs a change of scenery for sure. Skipping a team because I didn't find one for Carolina. There was just none. Carolina, there was no players who I thought were underperforming. But on Chicago, need a change of scenery. Basically same thing. Kind of, not really. But from Chicago, I did get one, and that is goaltender Kevin Likener. Kevin Likener, he came into the league last year. He played solid enough. He started off really hot, slowed down, and that was that. And then this season, you know, they brought in Fleury. Lankinen's obviously more of a backup position, which I actually thought was a really good goalie tandem with Lankinen being in the backup position. And Lankinen just hasn't played very good. Now, neither of the Blackhawks, but Lankinen also hasn't played very good. He's put up below a 900 save percentage, and he just hasn't looked great, and he's in one of the worst. He's a leader in one of the categories you don't want to be leading in, and that's goals allowed above expected, or the opposite of goals saved. Basically, he's allowed a lot more goals than he should have, and I think that a change of scenery, playing for a better team, would definitely help padding those stats a little bit from where they are right now. Colorado was a tough one because I didn't know if they really had a player that needed a change of scenery, but the closest thing to that I could find was centerman Tyson Jost. Now, Jost is another young player who really never really lived up to his draft expectations. Pretty early pick, I believe it was 10th overall, I think. But he has been just putting up fourth line numbers for a while now. He's never really taken that next step. And I just think maybe sometimes you think players need to go to better teams, but in this case, he's already on the best. But I think maybe he needs to go to a team where he'd get more opportunity to play, just more ice time, more minutes like that. And maybe, probably not, but maybe he could show that he can be like a top 6 player. I don't think so, but I definitely think he could have improvements, getting more ice time and more opportunity. Moving on to Columbus, I have another goaltender, and that is Jonas Carpasallo. Now, Jonas Carpasallo, I think, is probably the most overrated goaltender in the league. He's putting up not great numbers this year. He didn't put up good numbers last year. He did put up decent numbers the year before. He didn't put up the great numbers the year before that, and he didn't put up good numbers the year before that. So basically, what I'm saying in a really long version is that he's only had one decent year, and the rest of the years have been bad. But Korpisalo, he's not playing great as usual, and just goals against average pretty high, save percentage pretty low. And he's only 27, but I think maybe give him a change of scenery, give him one more chance, you know? That one last chance of I can be an NHL goaltender, because I think he needs it. I just don't think it's going to work out in Columbus. You notice they've been playing Berube more, and it's just not really working out in Columbus, and I think they definitely need to give him another shot elsewhere. Please don't take him, Edmonton. I know you want to, but don't do it. He's no better than Koskinen. To Dallas, and from the Dallas Stars, I went with a veteran left winger, sort of veteran, Jamie Benn. Jamie Benn is producing, at the time I record this, at exactly half a point per game. He is 32, so he's a little to the older side. But this is like the third season in a row, I think, that just hasn't been great. Last season was a little bit better, but the season before wasn't great, and this season just hasn't been great. And a half-point production for a $9 million player is not good. And I know, yes, there's no way Jamie Benn gets a change of scenery. It's not happening. His contract's way too high. Contract's way too high for his production, which is way too low for that contract. And he's just not getting moved. That's just how it is. But I do think a change of scenery would still benefit him, because things have just died out in Dallas. Now, maybe it wouldn't benefit him. Maybe this is just who he is. He had a he was in his prime at a young age and then fell off quickly. And it does happen to players. That happens to players all the time. But maybe a change of scenery for Jamie Benn would help him find that game that he had a few years ago again. Moving on to Detroit. And from Detroit, I thought it was another pretty obvious one, a pretty young player. You probably already know who I'm talking about. It is left winger Filip Zadina. Filip Zadina has not lived up to any expectations. Obviously, a very, very early pick from the Detroit Red Wings. And he's just been not great. You know, you had high expectations, and he's put up fourth line points for years now, and things just haven't shaken up. And I really think I have not given up on Zadina yet. I think that he needs a new place. I think that he does. He has to. I can see him producing better in another place, but I don't think he'll ever produce that well in Detroit. And I'm sorry, Detroit fans, to say that. I just don't see him hitting his roof in Detroit. I think he needs to move to another location. Now, would Detroit be willing to trade Zadina? I don't know, really. I don't know what assets you could get for Zadina. It's probably not a crazy amount, so they probably wouldn't be willing to trade him. But is he an RFA this season? I don't even know if he's an RFA this season. But either way, I just think in order for him to hit his potential, or closer to his potential, he needs out of Detroit right now. From Edmonton, I went with a bit of an odd one. There were many options, but I went with Tyler Benson. Tyler Benson only has 2 points in 24 games as I'm making this, and he's 23. And the thing is, like, those 2 points, he's looked good, which is the funny part, is he hasn't looked bad getting those 2 points. He always looks good. He's always in it. He's a grinder. He gets involved, and he makes a lot of plays. And I just think that he needs more opportunity. He's on the fourth line getting like 5 minutes a night in Edmonton. And it's been better since Woodcroft taken over. He's been getting more ice time and more chances. And I just think he's also not getting a lot of puck luck. So there's a lot of things going wrong. But I think this is a guy who on another team not getting 2 minutes a night will eventually become like a fourth line player. I can't see him not becoming an NHLer. He's too good. Like, not too good as in he's a star, but I think he's better than an AHL player. Like, those point totals, not great. But he has been way better than those point totals. And in order to get those point totals, I think he has to get out of Edmonton. Florida. Florida is a pretty obvious one again. It is right winger Owen Tippet. Owen Tippet in 42 games only has 14 points that I'm making this. And I think really the problem with Owen Tippet isn't necessarily him. I think it's more on Florida, a stacked offensive team. Probably the most depth in forward on any team in the league. He's not getting that much opportunity. You know, he's playing maybe third line minutes, maybe fourth line sometimes because of his production. And Florida's trying to win. They're not trying to develop their prospects right now. They're not trying to develop their own Tippets, their whatever. They're trying to win. And if you're trying to win, you're not throwing Owen Tippet on the first line. That's just how it is. Unless he's playing that good. And obviously he's not, because his point production would be better. But I think that he could definitely improve his point production on a team where he'd actually get more top 6 minutes and top 6 opportunity. And that's just how it is. From LA, I couldn't find anybody. And that's because, like, I know it's weird, but anybody that wasn't performing well, I thought that they were too young to, like, just give up on it and say, oh, they need to change the scenery. I just thought they were too young for that. So I didn't get anyone for LA. From Minnesota, I have gone with centerman Nick Bjugstad. He, in 30 games, only has 8 points as I'm recording this. And Bjugstad, I think, is a player that has shown that he can be a pretty solid 40-point player, half a point per game player. And in Minnesota, it just hasn't worked out very well. Now he has had his ups and downs, but I think that other than Minnesota, if he moves away, he'd have a better chance of achieving that half point per game pace. From Montreal. Montreal was a bit of an easier one. Montreal, I went with left winger Mike Hoffman. Mike Hoffman, in 37 games, as I'm recording this, only has 17 points. And that is just not very good for him. Obviously, he's been very good in Florida for many years. He was very good in Ottawa, and then he went to St. Louis for a year, where last year, he played fine, and he signed that 3-year contract in Montreal, and so far it's just been bad. And Montreal's been bad, and he hasn't been great. And I think it would be best for him to be traded. And maybe, who knows, maybe at the deadline, Montreal can find a place for him to go. Because obviously, he's a power play guy. That's one of the reasons Montreal brought him in, was to help their power play. So maybe, a good team with a rough power play would be open to taking Mike Hoffman in the offseason. But moving on to Nashville. Nashville, I actually did not find any players from Nashville that I thought needed a change of scenery. Really, they're well coached. They play pretty well. They always overachieve. Nashville always overachieves. It's never underachieving. Like, even Duchesne and Johansson are playing really good this season after bad seasons last season. Like there's honestly, I don't think there's a player that really needs a change of scenery on Nashville. So, but there was one on New Jersey. So New Jersey, I ended up going with goaltender Mackenzie Blackwood. Mackenzie Blackwood, he looked very good at his young ages for his first couple years. And then in his last 2 seasons, his last couple years have just not been great. He put up barely above a 900 last year, and so far this season he's been below 1, and he just has not looked very good. He's looked okay, but he doesn't look like the same Mackenzie Blackwood he was before. And I think that to encapsulate that, he needs to be moved away from New Jersey. Maybe to a better team, maybe have a smaller role, be like a 1B goalie or a 1A instead of like a starting goaltender. Because I think he needs a bit of a break, a bit of a switch of things. But moving on to the Islanders. The Islanders, a team that has underperformed this year, and there were a few players I could have gone with. A lot of them were old, so I didn't know if they really needed a change of scenery or if they were just old. So I didn't go with an old player. I went with a younger player, Anthony Beauvillier. Anthony Beauvillier he has 19 points in 43 games right now. He's still to the younger side. And I just think that you see that offensive potential and the way that the Islanders are coached, the way that they play, the way they're built. I don't think he'll ever hit that. Just like Barzal, sort of. But with Beauvillier, I think he could be more offensively in a different place than the Islanders. The Islanders are not a very good team that plays very defensively. He's also had very little puck luck Beauvillier has had. And once again, I just think he could be more offensively minded and more offensive on another team. But from the Rangers, I have actually gone with another goaltender, and that is Igor Shesterkin. Igor Shesterkin this season, just joking. But I did go with a goaltender. I went with Alexander Gorgiev. I might have got a few of you there. Gorgiev in 20 games has an .898 save percentage, so his save percentage has slowly been falling down. And it's funny because you realize Shesterkin's role has slowly gone up. And since Gorgiev's role has slowly gone down, his numbers have gotten worse. And it's like a Talbot situation. Not really like a Talbot situation, but it feels like the Rangers always have multiple good goalies. And I remember they traded away Talbot because they had multiple good goalies. And I think now, that was I think the Lundqvist-Talbot thing or whatever. And now maybe you trade away Gorgiev, right? Gorgiev, maybe he could find that, Talbot thrive on another team. Maybe eventually be a starter. But I don't think he'll ever hit that potential or hit that in the Rangers, especially not with big boy Shesterkin around. But from Ottawa, I went with a bit of an interesting one. I went with Chris Tierney. Now, Chris Tierney is a player who he's pretty young. He played in San Jose, put up some good points in his last couple years. Went to Ottawa, put up some good points. But he's had a couple down years. And the first time he got traded, it sort of sparked him a bit, and he put up some good numbers, and now he's fallen a bit. And maybe to get that spark again, you can trade him again. Maybe it's just logic, right? He's a little bit been slow points-wise the last couple years, so by trading him, maybe he'll get a bit of a boost again and become that player he was a couple seasons back. But moving on to the Philadelphia Flyers. I'm from Philadelphia. There were a couple players I could have gone for. There was Morgan Frost, who I didn't yet. I'm not going to give up on him yet. It's his first NHL season, I think, or second. First, legitimate lots of games, so we'll wait till next year for that one. But from Philadelphia right now, I've gone with Kevin Hayes. Kevin Hayes in 20 games only has 9 points. He's getting close to his 30s, but this season has really just been a rough one with injuries and everything. Philadelphia's had a rough season with injuries overall. But Kevin Hayes has been injured, and obviously with his contract, there's no way he's headed anywhere, unless maybe they retain half, then maybe you can get him to go somewhere. I don't know exactly how long his contract runs for, But either way, Kevin Hayes obviously having a rough year just in general with other stuff going on. But it's just been a rough year for him, just NHL, everything. So I think he really just like a complete switch, a complete change would be the best thing for him. And maybe he could find what he had in his early Philadelphia days and in his Rangers days and all of that. Because I think he just needs a bit of a change. And from Pittsburgh, a player who also needs a bit of a change, just like every player on this list who I think needs a bit of a change, but this player needs a bit of a change, I think is one of the players who needs the most a bit of a change, because this bit of a change goes to Jason Zucker. And Jason Zucker has been very slow in his production. Now, in Minnesota, he was a bit inconsistent, half a point per game. Oh, he's a 60-point player. Oh, he's a 50-point. Like, very, very inconsistent and weird. But since he's gone to Pittsburgh, that point production, other than like the 15 games he played after the deadline that 1 year, has just completely dropped. He, like in this season, he's producing at like a third, fourth line players rate. It's been rough for him. And I think that he's capable of doing more. Like maybe he's dropped off early, sort of like Jamie Benn, but I don't think it's too late. And his contract might end this year. And if I was Jason Zucker, if it ended this year, I am headed out of Pittsburgh and trying to reestablish my career in some other place. Not reestablish career. It's not like he's going out to the NHL, but just like, reform it a little bit. Yeah. Moving on to San Jose. From San Jose, I went with right winger Kevin Lebenk. Kevin Lebenk in 21 games has 3 goals, 3 assists for 6 points. I think he's been dealing with injuries as well. I don't know exactly what he's been dealing with exactly, but he had a couple good years in San Jose, and since then he's just slowed down. And he's a guy who I think has some potential. And really, same thing with Kevin Hayes, sort of just I think he needs to get out of there. He needs a change of scenery, a flip of the switch. Although Kevin Hayes is a little more drastic, but I think that same concept goes for Kevin Lebenk. From Seattle. Seattle was an interesting one. They didn't have many players to go with, except for one really player who I think I could go with, and that's Philip Grubauer, who this season has been absolutely awful. It's been terrible. It's been rough. I don't know what to tell you. His numbers show it. Watch a game. If 1 in every 5 games he looks good, but you know what, you're probably not going to see that game, so just watch a game and then you'll know, because man, it's rough. He obviously never really has had bad numbers, has always put up really good numbers, but he's also always played for really good teams, so obviously I think that's a thing. He goes from a stud Washington team to a stud Colorado team, always puts up good numbers. And now he's in this very not good Seattle team, and he's just not doing good there at all. And I think to salvage his career, he need out. Now, he could definitely bounce back, but I think it would be easier for him to bounce back out of Seattle for sure. Although, you know what? He's making that money though, right? He got paid. He got paid. That's what really matters for Grubauer, right? Probably not, but still getting paid. From St. Louis, now I just realized how many goalies I have on this list, but really with St. Louis, it was sort of a default goalie because I couldn't find many players. But I ended up going with Jordan Binnington. Jordan Binnington has been slowly decreasing his numbers over the years, actually. His numbers have slowly decreased. He obviously had that huge hot run with St. Louis and their Stanley Cup and all that. Since then, it's died out quite a bit. But and with Ville Husso taking over, that's another case of Jordan Binnington probably needing out. But his contract is obviously expensive. And Binnington, his numbers, again, just haven't looked great recently. And I think he needs another spark. He needs out. From Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay was a bit of a hard one. But I went with the defenseman Cal Foote. Now, Cal Foote in 36 games only has 4 assists. And the reason I say only is this man wasn't intended to be a defensive defenseman. He was an early pick, I'm pretty sure. He put up good points in the WHL, and he just never really transferred over to the Tampa Bay system very well, or Tampa Bay NHL team very well. So maybe, by trading him away, he could find that offensive potential a bit more in another place that he never really could transfer over from the WHL to the Tampa Bay organization. But maybe in another organization, it'll just click. It'll just click a little bit better, you know? It just works like that sometimes. And from Toronto, I have another defenseman with the exact same amount of points as back-to-back. I have Travis Derma, who in 36 games has 1 goal, 3 assists for 4 points. And Derma is a defenseman who put solid points up in the past. It might have been with LA, I think. I don't know. But he actually has with Toronto. But again, this is a player who has died out a bit and hasn't been as good lately the last couple of years. And once again, it's just that whole, I think they need another spark. They need a change and all that to get going again. And Derma is another example of that. But now let me just flip the page to the last 4 teams on here. Because starting off, the last 4 teams is the Vs. And the first team on the Vs is Vancouver. And from Vancouver, I went with centerman Jason Dickinson. And man, so Jason Dickinson was so good in so good in Dallas for a few years. By so good, I mean like a solid 4th line guy, 3rd line guy. But he was playing very solid, all right? And then Vancouver signed him, and honestly, it didn't look bad. It looked like, all right, you know what? That's solid. As much as Vancouver probably shouldn't be trading away first and signing people when you're not a playoff team, this signing doesn't look bad. It looks bad now because he only has 6 points in 48 games as I record this. It's been a really rough run for him. It's been horrible. And once again, like, this is he need out. He need out. He, in Dallas, performed well, and just it has not worked with Vancouver. And I'm sure if he went somewhere else, he would play fine again. He would once again reach that, like, 3rd line guy. It's just Vancouver has not clicked at all. But moving on to Vegas. And from Vegas, I actually couldn't find anyone. There was a few guys I was looking at a little bit. Likener was one of them. I looked at Janmark a little bit. But there wasn't really any player I could pinpoint and really say that I think they need to change the scenery. So there was no one from there. But there is someone from Washington. Because from Washington, I went with goaltender Ilya Samsonov. Samsonov, he was an early draft pick. Obviously, I think he was 22nd overall in 2015. And he just obviously is a first-round pick goaltender. You have high expectations, and he hasn't hit those as many of the players you're having. And I think that it's sort of like the Sam Bennett where you have an early first-round pick and he doesn't shape up, and then he goes somewhere else like Florida, and bam, he's great. And with Samsonov, obviously not a top 4 pick, but I think he was the first goalie drafted in 2015. And he could be a goalie who, like, oh, he's okay, and then you trade him away. And, oh, look at him now, he's Vezina winner. Just joking, not that good, but I think he could be better, definitely, getting out of Washington. I think something that might need to happen for him. And the last player on this list, which was pretty difficult. This is actually the hardest player to speak about. I don't know why, it just is. But it's Dylan Demelo from Winnipeg. And Dylan Demelo, in 45 games, has 1 goal, 6 assists. 1 goal, 5 points for 6 assists. Now, I looked over every player's stats before I did this to make sure I wasn't going to be rusty on many of them. But Dylan Demelo, I kind of forget a bit. Looking at the fact that he's 28, I'm pretty sure he put up some, like, decent offensive numbers past years and decent defensive numbers, and the last couple years have just fallen off a bit. And a change of scenery would be nice for him, obviously, you know, another spark type thing. But yeah, so that's that. Winnipeg, you waited forever to see that. So thank you for watching. If you're still here, I've now recorded both of the videos. I'm hoping to have the Caulfield one out before this one. I'm saying that now. I'm going to have the Caulfield out by tonight. The Caulfield video out by tonight. But you guys already probably have that out by... No. Yeah, so thank you for watching. And hopefully I will see you guys in the next video where I want to change my format. I should have a background. I should actually be in the video. And I should have a mic. So quality should sound better. But we'll see. I'm hoping that the mic I get's quality sounds good. But yeah, we'll see. So thank you for watching. And I'll see you guys next time.